We begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land upon which this podcast was recorded, the Gundungurra people. We like to pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. Welcome to AidStation 31. I'm Ali Pottinger, and to be honest, it feels a bit weird doing this bit on my lonesome. Normally I have the boys to chat with, but this week you just get me. I'll give you an update on them because they're not here, so I can run amok. Matt's had a date doing his long run with his beautiful wife, Rebecca. I'm a fan. We don't get too much of her in DCR, but she's a good human and they're super cute together, so I'm happy that they've got out for a run on this beautiful day. Andrew, it's been his daughter's 18th birthday. I asked him if they were going to be doing chartreuse shots like I did for my 18th. Andrew didn't actually know what chartreuse was, which surprised me for a guy who's toured the world as a musician. He did provide an update though, saying that the fireball shots had come out, so I'm guessing he's still recovering. And that's the team update. This week, I'm happy to bring to you the Women in Trail panel from Ultra Trail Australia. I was joined by a wonderful team of ladies, Jessie Speedy, who hails from Tauranga and will be a name to watch on the running scene. She lives up to her surname, winning UTA 22 and Tarawera 21 this year. I really enjoyed getting to know her better. She's a fun and down-to-earth human, as I'm sure you'll hear very soon. Nicole Bunyon, who started the weekend pretty nervous because she was jumping on the microphone and emceeing for the first time. She did an amazing job and she really built up her confidence over the course of the weekend. I can't wait to see her rock the mic at future events. And Lucy Bartholomew, who had crewed Cocodona 250 miles and then flew to Australia the day before the race. She had a tough race, feeling jet-lagged and out of sorts, but in true Lucy style, she spent the weekend sharing her knowledge and experience with the community, and we all absolutely love her for it. It wouldn't feel like UTA without Lucy. So I'm glad that she came, even though it was a bit of a tough one. And on that note, let's hear what the ladies had to say. It's always hard trying to cover everything off, and there's more that can be spoken about. I really enjoy hosting these panels and I hope you enjoy listening to it. If there are topics you'd love to hear covered off, then feel free to send me a message. Let's go. The UTA Women in Trail panel. All right, welcome to our Women in Trail panel. To start off with, I'm going to go around and introduce you to our wonderful panellists. On the far left is Nicole Bunyon. She is founder of Running Mums Australia, which is a supportive and widespread running network with a strong sense of community. She has run UTA 100 and many other ultra trail distance runs and knows what it's like to be a running mum and how to get the training done. She's also pushing her boundaries and has joined us on the commentary team at UTA, which is so exciting, and she's been doing an amazing job of it. Next is Jessie Speedy. She's an up-and-comer in the sport.
Great
recent
name.
to hitting the trails. I know, she's got the best surname here. If anyone wants to marry Jessie, it's probably a long line, hey? She's a registered sports dietitian and she recently won Tarawera Ultra Trail 21K and now she has won the 22K today. Yeah. And then next to me, Lucy Bartholomew, an absolute legend in the trail running scene. She's only still in her 20s for another year. Hey, Lucy. She's top 10 at UTMB. She's podiumed Western States. She's won UTA 100. Her CV could go on for a very long time. The thing we love most about Lucy, though, is how giving she is with her time and how much wisdom and positivity she has to share about our sport. And I'm Ali Pottinger. I've been a full-time coach with Squad Run since 2015, an experienced ultra runner, mum, MC at lots of different running events, and have recently added podcaster at Dirt Church Radio to the list of things that I do. So we're here, and we know that as women we have a lot of extra challenges that we have to overcome to engage in our sport. But we know too that it's totally worth it to persevere.
The Women's Sports Foundation states that girls and women who play sports have a more positive body image and experience higher states of psychological well-being than girls and women who do not play sports. Girls and women who play sports have higher levels of confidence and self-esteem and lower levels of depression. So today we want to recognise the challenges and barriers and to have a bit of a toolkit session where we discuss strategies and approaches to help you get as much of the good stuff that is trail running and the trail running community as you can. First of all though, let's do a bit of a round of applause for the women out there on the miler course at the moment and the tail end of the 22k course. It's a shame that they can't be here with us. I know that there were some that were quite keen, but I did get to see them off at the start line this morning and have been excitedly watching the race play out. But back to everyone here. We hosted a session here this time last year, and at the beginning I'd asked people to write down the most common challenges that the group had encountered. And today I want to follow up on some of those common themes, but also develop upon ones that I see time and time again with ladies that I've got the pleasure of working with. So today we're going to dive into asking the team some questions. At the end of the session, if you have any extra questions, we can open up for Q&A or have time for a chat afterwards. So the first one, and it was one that I thought was really interesting, cost can be a barrier to many people, and we're constantly being sold to via social media, lots of content about what to eat, what to drink, and of course the latest and greatest gear. So having a think about that, what tips have you ladies got to make running more affordable? And I'm actually going to start with Lucy, because Lucy was like, back in the days, quite a dirtbagger, hey Lucy? Like, before she became the international...
I'm still on a lounge room floor today.
Okay, so first tip from Lucy.
Yeah, I think it's really, I feel like I'm part of the problem in this, in that I'm sponsored by brands that I will promote and tell that you need Julbo sunglasses, Solomon shoes, you need the latest and the greatest. But I think at the essence, things are built to last, and the good stuff, investing in something that will last is important. And I really think that running at its basic is really, really simple. You don't need. Having said that, I do think that there's being specific and intentional about where you put your money. Like, I think investing in a good sports bra is by far and behold, you have to wear that thing. Mm-hmm. And it will, your relationship with sport and how you feel doing it is dictated by putting money into that. So I think that there's things that I'm like, non-negotiable, invest. And I know it's hard to do, but it's something that I would really recommend for a long and comfortable and enjoyable experience with the sport. But there's other things like, you know, having the watch and the headphones and the funky trendy sunglasses and the pink instead of the blue top for the new season. You know, it becomes a little bit ridiculous. And in saying that, you know, there's so many places where you can get secondhand gear, and in having a lot of elite friends who are sponsored, we are constantly just kind of like shuffling through that and putting it into places where people can buy it secondhand. I know that the girls that I coach, a lot of my stuff, it goes and funnels through to them. So it's kind of like there is a life cycle. At that pointy end, we are kind of like putting it back out there. But yeah, I feel like we've made sport really complicated and expensive, and it doesn't need to be that way. When I first began, I was just super stoked wearing some shoes with some holes in it, t-shirt from the race that I'd done, some shorts, and just kind of very salt of the earth. And I really think that like pairing it back to that is the way to make it affordable and accessible. But I do think that there's a level of comfortable that you do pay for and get back once you do invest.
Thank you. Jessie, I'm keen to hear your thoughts kind of with your dietitian, sports dietitian hat on, if we can. So is there things that you can do when it comes to fueling?
Yes, so what sprung to mind when you said supplements, right? $1 billion industry. And from, I guess, sports dietitian's perspective, you know, a lot of it is money making. First off, we always want to go for a food first approach. So, you know, lots of these things you say like are, you know, pushed out on social media, but often, you know, people are getting paid to say these things and things like that. Sure, if it makes you feel good and you can afford it, you know, no stopping like there, personal choice. But if you can tick the boxes with your diet, having well-rounded meals, fueling well for the activity you're doing, and enough would be the key. Then supplements kind of come on that kind of 1%er, that kind of thing.
And thinking about that, I think too, that's probably an area of risk that a lot of people don't consider, is potentially there's things in there that might be banned, substances.
Yes. And so that's also a key driver as well. And what we try to teach, athletes and sports teams I work with that is they want to take all these supplements. And I'm like, well, A, is it batch tested? If you're looking to take a supplement, I would recommend it being batch tested by a third party. So in Australia, a common one is HASTA or Informed Sport, but there's many others out there. And that just means that batch that you're taking has actually been tested, right? Because supplements is an unregulated industry. So, and it's quite a high risk actually. Yeah. So definitely go for that food first and look into your supplements if you think you need one.
Thanks, Jessie. Nicole, have you got some advice?
Yeah, I think just what Lucy said, I really think the power of community is so important, and there's so many people that can't afford to buy the latest and greatest gear. I know in my community, there's Facebook groups, and often people that are passing on, there is actually a group on Facebook, if anyone's on it, called First We Run, Buy, Sell, Swap. You can go on there and you can get secondhand shoes that people have maybe tried out and they just didn't work for them. Shirts people just want to pass on, and I know even in the RMA community, people just say, hey, I've got this shirt, I don't wear it anymore, who wants it? I know I do that myself, of course, with a lot of my gear. I actually am a bit of a person who just wears the same gear over and over and over again till I think, oh, this thing really stinks, I need to get rid of it. But I don't think it's important to have, the latest gear, but I agree with Lucy that whatever you're comfortable in, what makes you feel good, is what you should be wearing when you're out running and racing.
Yeah, and one thing that I thought of is kind of from maybe it's picking an A race and going, that's my A race, and perhaps with some of the other longer runs, rather than going for an event, if cost is a barrier, then use your car as an aid station, or get your family or friends to set up points along the way so that you can get those longer runs done without needing to pay a race entry fee. So that's another way to kind of, save some moolah. So time management, I think time is the thing that we probably all struggle most with. Hands up if you find kind of balancing time for training probably the biggest barrier or the hardest thing. I love that Ben Duffus is here and he's got his hand up too. So it's the struggle, right, for everyone. What tips do we have for ladies or men making training fit in with busy lives?
I don't have a busy life.
Okay, I'll cover those. I do have a busy life. 3 children. My children are adults now, so I guess it's not as busy as it once was. But if I think back to when it was, and I was in the thick of having young children and training for ultras, it was a really hard time. But I think if it means a lot to you, then you prioritise the time. So I would get up early, I would literally get up at 4:30, 5 a.m. and I would head out for my run with my head torch, and I would get it done before I'd go off to work or do what I had to do for the day. I'd get into the gym, and even now I work, I train and coach, and I just find the time around my schedule where I can. That might mean everybody's been fed after dinner, and then I go and jump into the gym, or I go out for my run. And sometimes it's actually beautiful to run at parts of the day when no one else is actually awake. And of course, which we'll probably come to later, there are issues around safety with that. So I have groups of friends that I meet regularly in my area that we get together and train at 6 a.m. in the morning. We do hill sessions together so we can get it done, and we all understand that it's hard to fit it in. So we kind of, I guess, are accountable to each other. It's Tuesdays tomorrow, girls, who's coming at 6? I'm going to meet you on the corner. So it's oh, okay, I'll come. I think if you know someone else is coming, you'll get it done. So it's also forming that community once again to help you get it ticked off.
Add a little bit. I think also just being organised. I love a list. But also I think being flexible with that, you know, when there's periods of high stress, say, in life, or of work or exams, if you're doing that kind of thing, I know personally myself, there's no point in me really having a hard training week because it'll actually just put me into the red, right? So I think it's about being realistic with your time for longevity, you know, so it's like, sweet, 20 minutes gym's better than maybe getting my whole session in today, but I've done a little bit, you know, or done my rehab exercises, or sweet, I only had time for like a short jog today, but I'm a bit stressed, but that's fine, I'll do a session next week when things calm down. So I think it's all good just to like have a good balance, you know, not being too, the coach said this, so have to get in my 90-minute session at like 4 a.m, you know, but when you're better, probably just asleep, that kind of thing. So yeah, just finding that balance, I think, is key.
And with that, I think it's really helpful to try and be objective with yourself. And so rather than it being you, well, okay, if it was my friend in this situation, what would I tell them? Because we're way harder on ourselves. Like the other day, Matt, who does the podcast with me, he flew in, he got up at 3 a.m, travelled, had this massive day. It got to about 5 o'clock and he was really pale. And he's like, I'm going to go out for my half an hour jog now. And I was going, do you just want to go out for dinner? And he was like, oh. It's like, dude, you look wrecked. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Like, actually, let's do this. But it was that kind of, he was really fixed in wanting to do it because that's what he had planned on. But sometimes just that reassurance is actually really helpful. Like, this is the right thing to do right now in your situation. Lucy, have you thought of anything now?
Can be a little helpful. Yeah, I think back to like when I was at school and I was doing running, and it was kind of like, you know, I had 40 minutes before school, after school, where there was daylight hours and I could get a little bit of running in. And I think about it was just kind of like, this is what I've got, I'm going to work with it. And when your back's against the wall, you become so just efficient. Whereas, you know, now I have all day and I still seem to put it to the very last thing to do. I don't know what I do otherwise, but somehow it's always 5 p.m. and I'm like, it's meant to run for 2 hours at some point, you know. And I think that like that time management thing is something that, you know, I ebb and flow with being good at and bad at, depending on what my life commitments are. But I think similar to what these guys are saying, like stress plus rest equals growth. And the stress we think of like there's the work, financial, family, social, but it's training. And if you can't balance that with the resting period, you're not going to grow as an athlete or as a human. You're actually going to go backwards. And so being mindful of like that equation. And you know, I say this, and I've just flown from America after pacing and crewing a 250-mile race, and I'm like, 100K sounds good. Sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah.
You know, and I think like we're a more is more community. We go in, we go neck deep, we go hard on things, and so it's just kind of like being graceful and mindful of like, okay, like this could put me in the red. This could be a risk. I am doing something that is, you know, pretty remarkable, and just kind of being able to give grace in that, I think, is like being unattached to the outcome and more about the process, and just being like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to try, we'll see how it rinses out. But it doesn't define me as a human. This one experience, how I do it consistently is more important.
I've got a couple of little bits because it's tricky, right? Like I've got a 2.5-year-old and trying to make exercise happen is challenging. So I've just got catch-ups on the go, gentle walks, bike rides. Like I've got a little shotgun seat for my boy so I can put him on there and cheer for Lucy when she's running. Runs with friends, gym dates, swimming dates, whatever works. And if you have a routine, then it becomes expected that that's actually your time to do something. So that's really helpful because everyone else is on board with it. They're like, oh yeah, that's when she does this. Another thing, like I'm in a position where I can do this, but I commit to a personal trainer session or that sort of thing, like a Pilates session. And so then I'm like, well, I definitely have to make this happen because I paid for it. And one more thing that's really helpful for me is grocery deliveries. So rather than going to the supermarket for an hour, I get my groceries delivered. And sometimes it's making a larger meal so we can have leftovers the next day, or easier meals like putting rice in the rice cooker, putting stuff in the air fryer, and then a pot of veggies. And I'm like, yes. Some time for me. So those are a few little kind of my little hacks.
I think you can also make it pretty incidental. Like I remember using like running as such a commuting way, especially though I didn't have a driver's license. I was like really good at it. And I think the cool thing about running is that like 20, 30 minutes of running, you can make it so efficient, so hard, so easy. When I was doing some triathlon stuff, I was like, man, the thought of going to a pool, having to put my bathers on, get in the water, get out, my hair smells like shit, got to change that, like it's a whole process. And then cycling, it's like you're freezing for the first hour and then the next hour is enjoyable, but I don't have 2 hours. Running is just like, you can just do a little warm up and start hitting some intervals really hard and you can just like bang, 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 you're tired, you've got the endorphins going and it's like efficient. So I feel like we've got the best sport and we can do it anywhere. Yeah, we're trail runners, but like sometimes you just got to be like, I'm asphalt going, I'm running on the highway, I'm running the streets, like it is what it is, but I love the sport enough that like I'm willing to do this and I think that's a cool thing.
Yeah, and we can see how that asphalt running has served Jessie too. How do you build or prioritise strength work into your training? Who wants to start?
Not well.
Oh, no,
you go. No, seriously.
So I feel like I'm a bit of a different runner in that I love the gym. I just absolutely love it. I don't know why, but I just love lifting heavy weights. So I enjoy doing it, I guess. And so I guess that would be it. Like if you don't particularly maybe enjoy the gym, pick a certain style of exercise at the gym, that maybe you enjoy. Or just start doing it at home. I think they can be really intimidating places, particularly like the weights room at a gym if you don't feel comfortable going in. Whereas now I just kind of walk in with all the lads and I'm like, all good, I'll show up. But if you're not, obviously at the start of something like that, start at home. Anything's better than nothing. I guess with the structuring, I quite like to keep my hard days hard. So I'll tend to gym on a day where I've done a harder run or, a session type thing, and then I really recover on the days in between. But it's all personal preference because, if I can't fit it in one day, then I might do it the other day. Just I think at least getting it in where you can. If you've got any injuries as well, I guess I've had a few injuries, you kind of prioritising those exercises.
I'm just enjoying the gym so much these days. I actually really like it, and it takes me back because as a teenager my father was a weightlifter, like heavy weightlifter, and he actually used to get me in the gym and teach me how to lift the weights. And so he bought me weights a few years ago, and doing ultra running I just pretended like they weren't there. They were just sitting in the corner of my garage. And then just recently, probably in the last 12 months, I'm 48 years old now, it's so important to get strong. As a woman going through perimenopause, it's really important because I want longevity in this sport. I want to be able to run for a very long time, and it's kept me injury free. So I enjoy it. I get into my gym. It's not negotiable for me. Twice a week in my garage, I've got a few different pieces of equipment. I do really basic squats, lunges, like kettlebell swings. It's super easy. You can just go onto YouTube, look up how to do the exercises. Of course, it's important to know how to do them safely and have someone show you. I was lucky I had that instruction, but just get in there and have a go. And if you're not comfortable, maybe head to a gym that's sort of a little bit more, I guess, less intimidating, and maybe have a few sessions with someone who can train you, and then you can do these things at home with body weights or just hand weights.
It's kind of the first thing to go for me. When running goes up, strength disappears. But I have started working with a strength coach as someone that, like you say, when you pay and you invest, it makes you show up. And I've definitely noticed that, there was the old school philosophy of to be a better runner, you just got to run more. And I feel like now we're training smarter, and especially as females, we're starting to see that just shoving miles into the body is actually not the smartest way, nor the most sustainable way. And you can actually by doing less, you can actually be a better runner. And so I'm starting to see that. And I think it's something that is so, so important to do when you're young, to do whenever, in any stage of life. I'm even watching my dad kind of circle back to it. And there's nothing like an injury to really get you back into it, and then it phases back out. But I think that it's just something that it's worth, even if it's just 10 minutes, if it means you cut your run short by 10 minutes, it's worth the payoff. The 10 minutes of running can sometimes go into the bin for like 10 minutes of doing some core or mobility or some like light body weight stuff. I think you'll see a payoff that's greater than what we probably want to or think. It's just not as sexy as like running around outside and super fun.
Doesn't look as cool on Strava, right?
No, and it's not even impressive weights. It's like, you know, like picking up little dumbbells.
100%. One of the things that we often talk about is like eating the frog. So doing the thing that you don't really want to do before you get to do the thing you want to do. So for me, I'll do my little strength session. If I've had a crap day and I haven't had much time to do anything, then I'll go, well, at least I can do strength work, and I'll do it, and then I get to watch my TV show. So there I go on the floor, 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and get something done, which is really cool. This is a tough one, but it's important to talk about. So safety continues to be a challenge for women. What strategies do you have for keeping safe on your runs?
Do you want to start? Nicole? Oh, me?
Yes.
All right. Safety. Yeah, I think, you know, like if we've already established, I don't really have to do the whole early morning thing. So I definitely train when I have, you know, it's light out, and I do have people that I can train with, and that's something that I think is really important, is that kind of power in numbers. I do think something like the other day, I've now got a really cool sports bra that has a slip for the phone down the spine, and it's really cool to be able to run with my phone for safety. It doesn't feel like I have to like carry it in any annoying way. And I think I think that there's just little things that you can do with training with people, picking your time, picking your place. It feels, when you start listing it, it's like all these kind of like resistance that can be really challenging to overcome as a female, and feels like barriers to entry after barrier after entry. But there is so much supportive groups, and there's people running at different times, different distances, different places, different paces. And, you know, I think that they are out there, and so we can kind of lean into that and take it for what it is. But it's a challenging one, and one that, like, especially as I've travelled around the world, I do think like we are lucky in Australia in comparison to being in Cape Town and South Africa and places even in America, where it's like the risk is more and very real than it has been what I feel at home. But I do think that, like, for me, I feel more comfortable. I'd rather be out with the snakes on the trail than I would be running along the Yarra River in Melbourne, for sure. And so I'm lucky enough where I can kind of choose that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to cover with safety. I mean, things that I do is I often will put on Strava, you can actually message when your run starts. So that goes directly to my husband to tell him when I've started and when I've finished. You can also, I've got it hidden, my start and finish. So if there are people following me, because I do have a public profile on there, then they never know where I live or where I'm starting and finishing my run. So that's another thing, because if you're often doing the same run a lot, or maybe you do the same place once a week, then no one really knows maybe where that started. Other thing is, obviously, I take my phone. I run with people on the trails, not always, but if I am running my trails, because I live on a local trail, and my favourite thing to do is actually run on a trail, not on the road, is I will message someone to tell them where I'm going and when I'm expected back, and then I will message them when I'm done. If I do feel unsafe in any place on the trail, I will literally cut my run short and turn around. Like, if I see someone that I just feel like this just doesn't feel right, I will text someone, get on the phone to my husband or someone else and cut my run short so they know where I am, send my location, something like that. Obviously, there's also times when we run in places that we don't have the use of our phones, so I always carry a Garmin InReach with me when I run on the trails in somewhere that I know I may not have reception or coverage. You can also download the Emergency Plus app on your phone, because I have had an incident, and I'm not just talking safety where we feel threatened, as a female, but like where I actually had my husband airlifted out of the Glenbrook in the Blue Mountains because he got lost on a trail 2 years ago. So, that actually has left me thinking really carefully about safety. And we were together that day, and he wanted to do a particular part of that trail that I wasn't comfortable with, but Anyway, that's another day, another story. But he went off, and I knew where he was going. But it was only like literally 10 minutes later that he messaged me to say he was stuck on a cliff and he couldn't get out. So, things like that. Luckily that day he had all the mandatory gear with him that he would need. It was summertime, but it was a rainy day, kind of like this. And he cooled down really quickly, but he had a jacket, he had fluids, he had food, he had his phone, and luckily he had reception. So we were able to get emergency services direct to his location. So it's also important to think of your safety when you're out running in that type of perspective.
It's a good answer.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Way more helpful than mine.
A little bit to add really. In New Zealand, I'm pretty lucky too, and like Lucy, I tend to try to go, even though daylight savings has made it a bit dark, but try to go in the daylight hours and then link up with people when I'm able to. More recently, when my long runs have been out in the trails and things, more training this year. Always send my mum a text as I'm going, where I'm parked, like what street I'm on, and take me my phone. And I also have a pretty good idea of the route, although I must say, I think it's part of trail running. You do get lost on your route, and that's just half the fun. But, within reason. Just all those little things covered off really well.
Yeah, so there are kind of thinking about that. It's really good to know how to read a map. So if you don't, try and learn those skills. And there are really detailed topo maps that you can download for different regions. So it's definitely worth doing, and they can basically geolocate you as well. So I'm going to kind of continue on with the theme of Nicole's of talking more about kind of that environmental safety. So it's hard, right? Like we kind of, some people will get into road running, they'll start road running and then they'll go, but I want to learn more about trail running and there are actually skills that you learn more like kind of bushcraft. So combining with people who have experience to learning what they do on the run, because there's things that I take for granted with lots of backcountry kind of remote experience that other people don't know. So things like, okay, well, when you reach your bush line or when you're getting near the top of the cliffs, it's likely to be colder and windier. Have your jacket handy, have your thermals ready, have your hat and your beanie ready to put on or put them on before you get to that exposed section, because you can get cold really quickly. Obviously kind of making sure you've got the right gear and fueling and hydration, and to last you a bit longer. Look at weather forecasts, read any parks warnings, because there are often a lot of warnings or trail closures, and know what the weather means for different areas and what gear you might need for those situations. So a couple of like little kind of rules that I have: if it's under 10 degrees, I wear my thermal. If I'm running in a pine forest and the winds are above 55 k an hour, it means that trees come down once they're stronger than that. So I won't go in those areas if it's like that. Same kind of thing if you're going up the cliff tops, like this kind of weekend's prime example. We've had it happen at UTA many times. People have DNF because they've just got really cold. They've been down in the valleys. It's pretty warm, and then you come up and oh my goodness, that cold wind gets you. So just being cognizant of those things. Those are some of the things that I thought of when it came to safety. One other thing that I thought was really interesting is it seems to be cropping up more and more is recreational athletes have quite high rates of relative energy deficiency in sport. So we don't often see ourselves as athletes, so we don't feel like athletes, but actually we're training, we're athletes. So I'd love to kind of have a few words from you, Jessie, on that area, if you were happy to.
Yes, totally. A passionate area of mine. And I also see, yes, Tina Burt, who's also very good in this area as well, from New Zealand. We went through Massey together and did some research and things. But yes, I think there's a common kind of theme out there, with kind of more recreational runners and things that, I guess they don't prioritise, say, fueling and nutrition because they don't think they're really doing stuff, or they're looking at their watch for calories and things like, those kinds of things. And it's just so wrong because, as we say, like the recreational runners are also working a full-time job throughout the whole day, and then fitting in training either end of the day. And then, you've got to eat, sleep, look after family, everything else like that. And obviously sometimes, nutrition's a miss. If you've got to get home, get the kids ready, where's your fueling and everything like that. And I think it's just so important to prioritise fueling because, sometimes people can get away with it, for a bit, but soon enough it's going to catch up on you. And it's better to start strong and stay strong and really prioritise it. Just because, I'm not going to go on about it, but there's a whole host of negative outcomes, that can happen. Females especially, our menstrual cycle is a key indicator of health, really. So whenever there's even if it's just a little bit irregular or, your cycle is slightly changed or a bit delayed, things like that, it's just your first kind of sign that, oh, hey, has this month been stressful? Have I been fueling enough? All these sorts of things. And use that as okay, I'm going to dial back training, dial back stress in my life and up my food. Because I think, obviously it's for males as well, but in particular females, we can kind of succumb to diet trends, particularly on social media these days. It's, sometimes I'm on there and I'm like, oh no, the poor people seeing this, people being influenced, it's such a, it can be a really positive place, but also a place where there's a lot of comparison, a lot of, all that kind of thing, particularly in our sport as well, carbohydrates are queen, I'll say king, king. And often that is a food group that's limited in a lot of diets and things like that, when really there's time and a place, and, we actually really need the sugar in the sport, we really need it. And that's where sports nutrition actually differs someday from just, your normal daily eating, where you're going to be having your well-balanced meals. It's hey, right now, I'm loading up my crumpets and I'm putting all the maple syrup on because I need these carbs. So I think it's just kind of making sure, recreational runners are kind of educated on, the importance of fueling enough for what they're doing.
And speaking of fueling, race day fueling, any kind of, I know that training gut happens for months and years before race day, but what race day tips do you have for athletes to get the best out of themselves?
So I guess the golden rule, is try nothing new on race day, typically. Try nothing new. Practice it, beforehand. And try stick to your fueling plan, because I think it's often, common, and when you're training, you're not nervous, so you're like, oh, I can eat all this and I can go out and I'm fine and I'm stomach this all good. But sometimes, just the different atmosphere, you're traveling, all those sorts of things. So make a schedule the day before, have your pre-run, whatever it is, and that. And I think the most important thing, especially for the longer events, is the during, and trying to stick to that as much as you can. Because sometimes it can be easy to either just forget because you're caught up in the race, or especially drinking as well, hydration, also key. But even just having a little reminder and not attaching yourself maybe to the time, but going, maybe on the X 20 minute or on the, every 20 or 30 minutes, actually I need to continue to fuel, would be my keys. Early and often really would be the key there,
Lucy, in my opinion, this is an area that you've learned a lot about and worked on a lot over the years. What were some of the mistakes that you made early on, and what impacts do you notice of fueling well on your performance?
Yeah, definitely. Mistakes I made early on. Whew. It's a long list. Yeah, I think we normalise the sport that we're doing, and it's really easy to normalise going out for an hour run, a 2-hour run, a 3-hour long run. And it's an exceptional thing that we're making our body do, and we're doing that on top of living a full life and having other commitments. And it's not like we do the standard 3 meals, 2 snacks, that you're kind of taught at school. You are doing something more than the average human, and so you got to do and eat more. Like a car, if you're not put it in, you're not going to go very far. So I think growing up, I kind of it was very normalised with my dad running, and it was just kind of like, this is fine, this is normal. And I'd go to school and I'd have just as everyone else, and for sure got stuck in the comparison of I don't want to be seen to be eating more. I'll just have the same sandwich like everybody else, and I'd run that morning. And so I think acknowledging that what we're doing is exceptional. You are an athlete. You got to fill the void of the hole that you dig when you go out and put yourself and do some running, as you go into a deficit in that hour that if you're not fueling during it, and then you've got to fill that in, and you fill it in with above and beyond what you were going to fuel with otherwise. So I think that was kind of like something that I had to learn, and I learned the hard way. And like Jessie said, you know, you can have success and you can get smaller and feel lighter and have wins on the board, and then there'll be a point where something will stop you, and it might be an injury. It could be something like a stress or bone reaction. And for me, it was my brain. Like, I totally just like hated the sport. You know, I could do it, I could perform at it, but I didn't want to be doing it. And I think that was for me a really stark kind of realization, and that made me stop. And it actually aligned kind of along with lockdown, and that really put a stop to my travels, to racing, and took the pressure off. And I was able to be like, I got to address this. You know, I got to think about like, I identify, my identity is tied up with running, but I am not going to be that if I don't look after myself in this moment. And then, you know, I think finding what worked for me. I was also surrounded with a lot of elites, and they were kind of using goo gels, and the texture made me want to vomit. But I was like, no, but Emily Forsberg eats these, so I've got to eat these, you know? And I was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And now I've gone on this whole journey of just like, you know, it's really fun. I try new things. Sometimes it's stuff from the grocery store. It's, you know, just like Allen's lollies, and sometimes it's, you know, buying actual race fuel and trying a different gel. And you learn the hard way if it works or not. It comes out one end, and you just accept that for what it is. You know, it makes a great story moving forward. Yeah. You know, but there's no right or wrong. And I've fueled races overseas on pieces of pizza and, you know, take like food like that. And then I've done the whole on the 20-minute a gel, and they've both got me through. So I think the most important thing is you just need, whatever's going to go in and stay in is a great thing. Yeah. And just like when you finish exercising, whatever's going to go in and stay in is a great thing. If you finish your run and the only thing available to you is like a piece of chocolate cake, fucking fantastic. Eat the fucking cake, because you not having that is making all of that hard work that you did out on the trails irrelevant. Your body is now stressed. You've created, on top of the stress of the exercise, you've created a stress of deficit. And then your body goes into this fear mode of being like, okay, we haven't got anything to like rebuild these muscles. We're on our own. Okay, we've got to slow everything down. And then your metabolism slows, and it's just this rolling snowball that will catch up to you at some point. And I think that's what I've realized is like, you got to eat breakfast, whatever you've got available. If it's a couple of lollies, if it's a glass of juice, if it's something, putting something in, something during and something after. And it's not having like, oh, I got to have the oatmeal with a bit of half a banana and a teaspoon of maple syrup. It has to be perfect. You know, Killian eats 2 pieces of toast with Nutella. I got to do that too. It's just like, take what you've got and work with it. Something's better than nothing. And that's just like, there's a saying that I love, that it's like, fuel too much sometimes, fuel not enough always, and fuel enough. No, fuel, hang on, let me think about that. I love it so much, this quote, obviously. Fuel not enough never, fuel enough always, and fuel too much sometimes. And I kind of love it. It's kind of like, sometimes go wild, sometimes, you know, but like never go under. And I think that's a really important thing. And out on the trails, you know, I see that there's a sign, and it's exactly what I would always say is nibble, nibble, sip, sip. And that's just like left foot, right foot, nibble, nibble, sip, sip, little bit by little bit. It's something I repeat to myself on repeat. It's just like, you know, you don't need to eat the whole bar. Just take a nibble, let it sit. Take a sip, let it sit. You know, and just like, that's your job for the day. You're just going buffet to buffet. Like, we're just snacking and stepping. And I think when you can kind of view it in that positive way, there's nothing that is wrong or right, but it's like the thing that keeps you moving, keeps you forward, you've got to be putting stuff in. And that's what I learned, because I fucked it up.
Do you think, though, bringing that awareness and kind of learning the hard way has actually now kept you in the sport a lot longer?
Oh yeah, totally. Because I think like the way that my brain was hating it was just like, that was going to be the end, you know? And we see a lot of flash in the pan athletes having great success and then we never hear of them again. And I was lucky to have people around me and a team that kind of pulled me out of it in time. And I felt like I relearnt the whole sport because there's this whole side, and I think ultra running particularly, fitness is one thing, but being able to fuel and being fresh and being like strong and sturdy enough to endure it is more important than having a great VO2 max or the interval sessions you completed or the long runs or the Strava sexy graph. Like it all means jack all if you get down narrow neck and you're not able to put anything in. And I think that that's kind of what now I put the emphasis on is like, I'm always gut training. Like, you know, give it to me. Let me try. Let me put it in. Let me go running. Maybe I'm a little uncomfortable. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. But it's like, if I'm learning, then I'm progressing. But if I'm just like getting stagnant and thinking that I've got it sorted, I'm going to learn quickly that I don't.
Yeah, I could say one thing. Love that. Great summary. And I think it raised a really good point in that nutrition is not a one size fits all, right? I think you're right. People see, oh, she eats this, she does that. Here's the plan I should be doing for my race. Blah. But it really is just about testing what works for you. There's going to be days where, your gut's not feeling great. Get that done in training, you know, where it doesn't matter as much. Then when you come today, you've got a range of little goodies, your little buffet, that you know works for you, that you're looking forward to having. Like, especially in the really long events, you know, having something like a little Snickers or something, you know, that you're like, this is, or like, as just an example, that you're like, yes, give me
nuts.
that. Yeah. You know, things like that to look forward to. And yeah, I think just staying in your own lane with it, you know, and just doing you and not what you think you should be doing or what anyone you know. Yeah.
Can I add something real quick? I also think there's a real trend at the moment about 100 grams of carbs and these really high numbers. And my nutritionist, you know, I was like, man, I'm not doing that much. And she's like, yeah, but if you're taking in 60 grams consistently, it's better than taking in 120 for a couple of hours and then vomiting and then being in deficit the rest of the time. And I think that like pushing that grams and that numbers is like a really dangerous thing to do. What you can do consistently is a great thing rather than what you can do heroically and then not well at all. So I just think that that's like, it's a real trendy thing to be talking about at the moment. And you've just got to be really careful with it.
Can I just say, as a coach, the same applies to training and racing.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing I was going to add too is seeking out reputable sources. Like I've got a friend that's a sports dietitian and I know she just bangs her head against the wall because she's like, everybody wants to offer advice. And so I think just remember to seek it out from the people that have got accountability, right? Like I could go on the internet and post all this crap and you could be really sick or, you know, under fuel or whatever it is. And there's no accountability. Well, I mean, there is because I'm a coach, but otherwise there'd be no accountability. So, go for the people that really know what they're talking about. What advice do you have for women who worry about managing periods or hormones around training or race day? Anyone want to talk to that?
Yeah. You haven't talked for a while.
Haven't talked for a while. Well, periods. I mean, gosh.
Gotta love them.
Everybody.
Gotta love them.
Most women get them, let's be honest. Well, my advice really is if it's going to happen around race day, it's going to happen around race day. We can't control when our period is going to come. And I have had athletes that have been worried about the fact that their period was going to come on race day. Sometimes it can be quite heavy, so I just make sure that they're prepared, I guess, to be prepared for what might come, I guess, on race day around our period. 100%. Tomorrow, it might be one of you that gets your period on race day. So what I say to that is make sure you have supplies on you. Absolutely. Hopefully, UTA have supplies at the aid stations as well, but carry things with you as well. And if you need a little bit of assistance, just speak to someone on the course, and I'm sure that the amazing volunteers will be happy to help. Training-wise, if, there's times, I think it's a bit unique for every person. So it's not, once again, a one-size-fits-all approach towards people's cycles. Sometimes people have really heavy cycles, sometimes people have really light, sometimes like me, I don't even get one, but I obviously have a cycle. It's just that I don't bleed every month. So I guess you've got to just work with your athlete one-on-one about how they feel and get a lot of feedback from them in how they approach their training. So, sometimes some of my athletes coming up to certain times in their cycle, they just need a little bit more rest, they need a little bit more recovery, a little bit less intensity. And I don't really do training around periods so much, but I talk to them about how they're feeling around their training. So there's a lot of feedback every day, pretty much. They're telling me how they felt in their sessions or in their training, and then I'm giving that feedback. That's my little take.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said as well. And I think basically just, going off how you're feeling, because everyone is so different with it. And doing what works for you. I think it can be good to track your cycle. There's lots of apps out there and things, just to have a bit of awareness if there's any trends per se. But as well, going into race day, you can't control it. So I think just approaching it with a positive attitude. I've got my period, but it's also my superpower. It means I'm healthy, I can go out there. So I guess just keeping positive in those times with races and things.
Yeah, and I think, take one for the sisterhood too and carry some supplies with you, even if it's not likely to happen to you. Like I've had that happen when I've been sweeping a course before and a lady ran into the AidStation and she's like, I'm sorry guys, but does anyone have any feminine hygiene products? And she had a bleeding nose as well. And I was like, look, here's two, one for each bleeding orifice. And the other guys at the AidStation were mortified and I just thought I was hilarious. But you want that for you, right? Like if you did have a surprise, it's like, well, somebody's got my bag. Or, okay, that's enough, Ali.
And your front.
Lucy and Nicole, you both run UTA 100. What would you say to people that are thinking about tackling a longer distance next year?
Oh, yep. Okay. Just enjoy the process. I think these longer distances, they really take a lot of, it's not just the training that you'll do for that block. I feel like it takes tools that you'll put in your tool belt from just your life lived and the years of all the challenges that you get thrown at in life. I feel there's a saying that, in 100K or 100 miles, you live life in a day. And it truly feels like that. You ebb and flow between thinking, this is the best, this is the worst, this is the best, I can't do this, I can do this. And then you get to the finish line and you do it all again. You want to do it all again. But I think, like we've been talking about, think about tapping into the community, focus on your nutrition, consistency over king. Don't need to do anything heroically. You just need to get up and get out there every day and have your rest days and do everything just the best that you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. It never will be. I've never had a perfect build-up. But to have a perfect race, you need to learn to handle imperfection, and that's what it's going to take. So there's such beauty in doing something for the first time, and it's a privilege to be, getting older and older and doing things for the first time, and to put yourself into a place like the Blue Mountains and to go somewhere that only your feet can take you and some people will never see is just such an incredible privilege. So I think, just lean into that. Allow yourself to be nervous, ask for help, surround yourself with people who can help you. Just daring to believe is so important. Having the guts to sign up, having the belief to go through the training, and then having the courage to stand on the start line is just you're a winner for going through that process, because it's a really scary thing and it doesn't get easier. It just gets, you just get more used to it and you're just like, wow, here we go again. And it's just a really cool thing. So that would be my advice.
Wow, I don't even know how to add to that, Lucy, because there's so many things in there that I would have said.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. I just remember my UTA 100 experience as up there with one of the best experiences of my life. I can't say anything better. I had the best day, and I know that I was blessed with great weather. I'm even tearing up when I'm thinking about it, because to me it was just such a journey. I think 100 kilometres deserves respect, absolutely. And it's a lot of dedication and training and sacrifice. And on my part, it was a lot of sacrifice. A young family at the time, but it really was something that I wanted to achieve. You know, I'd worked my way through, you know, the 50Ks, and actually I don't even think I ran the 22 first. I think I ran the 50 and the 50 and the 50. And then I was like, I'm going to do the 100. It wasn't my first 100K, but I knew that that was like the pinnacle for me, running UT 800, because I just absolutely love this place and I love these trails. So I just surrounded myself with all of the information that I could gather from all of the people that I knew and that knew this course, and I read everything about the race, and I got out and I trained on parts of the course. And I just tried to not overthink it as well. Like, I tried to think of it as a journey, and I didn't want to set myself a time goal or anything like that so much as what was important to me. What was important to me was just having a great day and sort of soaking up the atmosphere. And so when I was on that start line, and I still can picture myself there, absolutely a ball of nerves, but really focused. And there's a picture of me, I still remember, where I'm just like head down focused, putting my shoes on in the morning. I think I shared it a few weeks ago, where I was just thinking how privileged I was to actually be able to be there on that start line. So I think if you're thinking of running 100 kilometres, think of it like a journey. There will be times when it's tough in training, and of course, absolutely, during the race, you're going to have a roller coaster. There may be times when you think, this is amazing, and then times when you think this is really hard, but come back to the reason why you're doing it. And just soak up everything out there, because the trail running community is so amazing, and it'll just carry you through the journey.
Yeah, I had a lot of paragraphs about training because it's my day-to-day. But I think probably the best takeaways that I can probably impart when it comes to training is that the best approach to training is to train as much as you can whilst still enjoying it, still managing your commitments, still keeping well, and having healthy relationships. And running should help you be a better version of you without accumulating excessive fatigue, and it'll show up if in the things that I mentioned above, if the training balance isn't right. And there was another little paragraph I had that I want you to remember too, that training happens over years and years. It's like a bank account. So when you do a session, you put coins in the bank, it gradually accumulates. Even if you have time off, the money you've saved is still there. There might have been a few bank fees removed, but the whole lot isn't wiped, so you're gradually layering up your experience. And one other thing that I like to work on with athletes is when you're considering a big goal, creating a long-term plan based around these three questions. What do I have? What do I need? And how am I going to get it? So if you've recently done UTA 22 and you're thinking about doing the 50, ask yourself those questions, or ask a coach, somebody that can help you plan that pathway, and build the pathway from where you are now to where you want to be, ready to toe the line of the next goal. And I know we're just kind of running over time. We started a little bit late, but I thought to wrap things up, perhaps probably just the last kind of pre-race, you got this. So any tips for making yourself feel more confident in yourself or in your training, or what kind of approaches help you on race day? So pick one of those ladies to talk to.
Go for it. Well, you raced today.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, I guess in the lead up to the race, I quite like to just be positive, you know, and also I don't like to take things too. I don't like to take things too seriously, right? You know, because I think, you know, it can be really serious, like, oh, all that kind of thing. You know, people asking me, oh, what's your time goal for today? I'm like, I'm not going to check my watch throughout the whole run.
A good time. My goal time is to have a good time.
Honestly, my goal today was just to get out there, have fun, and you know, I think you can stress yourself out by looking at your watch or being too pedantic about things. So some good bangers in the morning. Personally, you know, I'm a good 2000s playlist or an ABBA. Yep, I know, a bit rogue, but I love it. Some real bangers that all my music friends will be going, no. You know, Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide is my #1 Spotify artist. People are going to hate me for that. I've just put it out there. Come at me, it's all good. Those kinds of things that I'm a little bit, just things that make me feel good and that are gonna give me the vibes, you know. And I think obviously having a plan, but also realising sometimes, you know, it's a bit stressful on those morning things, like the buses, for instance. We're a little bit late this morning, you know, so I just went down the thing walking. I was like, oh, probably should jog now. Need to get to the Portaloo really quickly. That was my warm-up, and I got to the start line. But I was like, you know what? I'm here. We'll get it done. So kind of just soaking up the atmosphere and, but being flexible. And just being positive, I think, or having like one little mantra or something you say during your race. Like for me, I just sometimes in my head, when I'm going up the hill or something, I'm just like, yes. Like I'm just like that. I'm just like, and sometimes I speak it out loud. I'm like, you got this. And I'm just like, yes. I don't know why it works for me. Obviously, do what works for you. If you don't want to look like a nutter talking to yourself on the trail, no one else is around though, so why not? Sometimes a bit out of breath though, so it's like, yes. But nah, so just, keeping it light and easy is kind of me.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a bit of a mantra girl too. I think in the morning, it's been a while, I can't even remember when the last race was I did, but I like to tell myself, like even if I'm not sure, like you're strong, you're able, like keep saying that over and over, you're strong and able, you're so lucky to be here.
Yes.
That's what I say to myself.
I think along the same lines, I think like that positive self-talk is super important. And I really think I always kind of love saying like, I get to do this, I want to do this, I don't have to do this, I don't need to do this. This isn't going to define my character. This day doesn't define me. How I manage this day can show my characteristics, and that's something that I can control. Is you have two things you can control: your effort and your attitude. You know, the effort that you put into fueling yourself, to dressing appropriately, to all of that, and then your attitude. You can choose to get really down and out about it, to get angry, to be upset. It's just wasted energy. It's just kind of like your effort and your attitude are two things that you can control, and especially the effort to kind of like thank your crew, thank the volunteers, to someone's hiking up a hill next to you, to kind of like collaborate. And I think people always think, when I say thank you, they're like, wow, you know, you're really giving energy. And I'm always like, nah, it just reflects back to me. Like, you know, me saying something to you and then you acknowledging me just is like, we see each other. We're in this together. We're not alone. And I think realizing that is like, everyone's feeling the same thing. Everyone stands on the start line, whether you're first timer or you're like myself and done it multiple times. It's still, this requires mad respect, and those nerves and all those feelings are just the product of that. If you didn't respect it and you didn't care, you wouldn't have the nerves, but we do because we care and we've tried. And I just think that if you can lean into that, it's a really beautiful thing. And yeah, you know, Saturday is all about just like jogging and eating, and it's like, it's really not that bad.
What could go wrong?
I could be doing for a really long time.
I reckon we dot ourselves 1K along the race, and just every kilometre we can check in with Lucy and go, is it really that bad? Yeah. But I think it's quite clear to see from everyone's answers that, you know, bringing an attitude of gratitude is really helpful, and having those process goals of making it fun. Like, that's the best race I've ever had, was when my goal was to be the happiest person out there, and then you do things that make it a happy, fun race. So yeah, I hope on that note that you all have an amazing weekend here. I am saying a big thank you to these amazing ladies that are here.
Thank you.
All give them a big round of applause. For being so generous with your time, thank you, and have a wonderful UTA, people. It is always a good time. Bring the good vibes, and I hope you're all the happiest people out there tomorrow.
Thanks, Ali.
Thank you so much.
I really hope you enjoyed listening to that. And that's another AidStation. Dirt Church Radio is me, Ali Pottinger, Matt Raymond, and Andrew McDowell. Stay tuned for the regular DCR podcast over the upcoming weeks. We've got some super cool guests lined up for you and ready to share.